This Sunday. Every Sunday, side by side at the microphone, from the green light to the speed trap, Chris Switzer and Ray Garino calls them as they sees them, and you better believe them. Here, relevant news, biased opinions, and outright bullshit regarding every aspect of automotive culture. Gasp at mechanical trickery never before revealed over FCC-regulated airwaves. Thrill to the explosive tension as Chris and Ray cuss each other down the track and barrel roll across the finish line, laughing at certain disaster as they shake hands for the devil. All that and much more this Sunday at high noon on the Motormouth Radio Hour. Call in and speak live with the Wizards of Speed and live feed, Chris Switzer and Ray Garino. Bring the whole family. Kids under 12 get in free. Every Sunday at noon on WHPC. Take the Long Island Expressway to the Meadowbrook Parkway and look for the sign saying no parking on the expressway and no express service on the parkway. Go right on Highway 24 to Garden City. $2 all-day parking includes pit pass. Sunday!
I gotta knock a second off to get a trophy run. 1 grand, 2 grand, RPM. If I keep breaking loose on the line, then I'm done. 3 grand, 4 grand, RPM.
RPM. Yes, RPM on Motormouth Radio, Long Island's only automotive talk show with your hosts, Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. Chris, you're doing a very gyrationally,
Yeah, the latest, greatest hits from the Christmas tree air fresheners right here on our famous Top 40 automotive radio talk show, Motormouth Radio.
You got that right. I wish I had something witty to say RPM stood for, but I don't. So I'll just fade out the vocals and we'll go back to
Get it out of there.
We'll add melodies here. Yeah, listen, we're back from Mother's Day extravaganza. I hope people check that out.
Oh, I'm still out of breath.
Go to Motormouth Radio on YouTube or Motormouth Video on YouTube, and you can see that. Or go to Spreaker and nccradio.org, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, the WHPC app, or Spreaker. Look for WHPC, and you'll find our full lineup of shows here. And not to disappoint people, we have a really, really good show today.
We do. I'm very excited about this.
Just going to challenge Ed Sullivan. It's a really, really big
Very big shoe.
Yeah, we have Mr. Zack Miller from Quarto Company. Motorbooks is on with us. We've been dealing with them for some years now.
Yes.
And, they do some great stuff. So we're going to talk with Zack in about 15 minutes or so.
We had the Motormouth Radio, we used to call it the Author's Tour, if I'm not mistaken, where we would sit and talk about books and how-tos, and we got to meet a lot of astonishingly popular people, which was wonderful. It was good stuff, and hoping we can continue that, because I love knowledge, Ray.
Right? Oh, I know. So listen, I want to tell you 2 quick things before we get on with Mark, with Zack. I'm sorry, Mark, I'm thinking of somebody else. I had an unexpected battery failure. Now, we've talked about this in the past, how batteries now just... Yeah, they just die. And if you remember when I had my Mazda, the last battery I put in, and I said, come on, I just put a battery in this car. And I went back in my log, and I looked up all the battery replacements, and I buy 5-year batteries. They all failed within a month of that 5-year period. Wow. And the last one was within a month of the 5 years. So I said, okay, it was my constant time. It's just the way it is. And that car was driven every day. It wasn't sitting parked. Well, my wife's the Cruise. We go to get, just right before Mother's Day, we go to get in the car. Yeah. She'd used it the day before. And
it was fine, right?
Yeah, we get in it that morning. I hit the key, and it kind of gave me like a half a crank, and then click, 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 click. I was like, uh-oh. So I shut it off. I said, that didn't happen. Let me try it again. And of course, click, 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 click. I'm like, all right. I threw the battery tender on it. We took the other car, and when I got back later that day, I used my battery testing tool that I have, which does an electronic test and load test and all. And it said the battery was bad.
Wow! So
it ends up I had gotten 6 years and 5 months out of that one.
Wow, you were on borrowed time.
Right. So went and got a new battery, put it in, and now, and it was funny because I said to myself, I should listen to myself more often is what it means.
You mean you don't say, Ray? You don't do that?
No, I don't do that.
That's too bad.
I had kind of
more fun.
I kind of had the feeling that the car had a little bit of just a slightly slower startup crank to it.
See, I was going to preface that.
Mm-hmm.
That the newer cars don't give you that clue. Like
No,
the older cars, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whenever it was, the cars that we used to drive, it would give you that vroom, and you would get like that kind of weak initial engagement
right,
before it would start, and that was your clue to go to the auto parts store like in the
right.
next couple of starts. But new cars don't do that. It's like it
No,
works fine, it works fine, it works fine, then it fails.
right.
It's like it's on and then it's off.
But like I said, I did notice,
But you did notice something.
and for a little while now, for months, but the
Oh,
car always started, and I said, who knows? I don't know. Maybe it's just a characteristic. It's not showing any other adverse, signs or whatever. So let it go.
right.
So anyway, the takeaway is, don't be like me. You got a battery that's a 3, 4, 5 year. Check it and be ready
It's
because
a takeaway for this whole show.
right when they fail,
Don't be like us.
no, but then be prepared to fix it. So when they fail, they fail. And I went down to the interstate store and I saw my guy down there, and we did the swap, new battery, and I told my wife, I said, man, that's going to cost us like about $120. No, it was $160.
Yeah.
So, but I gave him a nice cigar. I said, hey, remember last time I was in, I promised you a cigar. He goes, did you? I'm like, yeah, here's this. He goes, oh, wow. He goes, thanks. That's great. Let's,
So you were $160 in a cigar lighter.
right.
See, I would have gone to Walmart,
I didn't give him a
got
lighter today.
myself a 5-year battery there.
Yeah, I know. Well, I went there. So we're back with the phone. We're high quality. You're on with the Motor Mouths.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ray, or Ray and Chris.
What's up, John?
Hey,
I
John.
want to be preferential.
No, you never are.
Ray,
What's up?
I was listening to your story on the batteries, and, for the life of me, I've stopped myself because it's a gajillion dollars to buy a battery at a dealership. So
Yeah.
Oh, don't do that.
The local auto parts store, box store, and get batteries. For the life of me, I've never been able to figure out why the original batteries way outlives.
Yeah, they do.
It's
They
true.
absolutely do. You're right, John. The original batteries, I've always had better luck with the original battery. Not always, many times I have.
Mhm.
And maybe it's because of the aftermarket batteries we're buying. Like I said, I'm like an interstate guy. I've had some trouble with them, but I still go back because I have the store by me, and the guys are good, and they'll check the battery for me and test it. And and then when I had one with a bad cell, they'll replace it for me. So
And John, and I'll tell you, I'm not lying when I say I go to Walmart and get a battery. And what I do is obviously you measure it. You measure the battery that's already in the car, and then I go right over there and I pick up one of their batteries
Yeah.
and drop it in, and they last 5 years.
now I
They
did see
last 5 years.
we were in Walmart right after that, and I saw the equivalent battery for this car for $79.
Right.
And I said, wow, I could have saved about half. I said, I don't know if I would have had the same quality battery or not. I don't know. So,
And I tell you, and I've always monitored it. Believe me, I've always, because this, you know me, Ray, I'll fall on the sword. So the second one of those batteries fail, I will be the first one to raise my hand and go, yep, it stunk. But you know what? Hasn't happened yet. So I'm literally smiling here and saying
yeah,
that they're, to me, a good value. And it's just like Walmart oil. You go to a Walmart up here to go find a 5-gallon jug of oil. They're not there. I mean, they're literally, the shelves get cleared the second they get stocked. So something is going on as far as I'm concerned. Because you go to an auto parts store, you see a full selection of batteries, you see a full selection of oil. Looks like you have to wipe the dust off it. So just saying.
yeah.
The biggest aha, you could buy a battery with a 7-8 year warranty on it, but read the fine print. It's prorated.
Yeah, they always prorate.
Right.
Sure, they always do.
Of course.
And that should come with a jar of Vaseline.
Well, well, the reason, John, I think the reason they do that is they can give you a battery that they believe is a good product and it's solid, but they can't vouch for what your charging system is like and what your
Right.
how you're going to treat that battery. So that's why I think they do the prorate thing. They
Yeah,
give you something back.
John, are they putting the Vaseline on the battery terminals or someplace else?
They're working off the law of averages.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
Yeah, because there's many people who have legit battery failures and legit batteries that just time out. There's as many people who are scammers that want to bring, go back and get one over on the store.
Without a doubt.
So
But,
that's probably why.
Car battery is a different story. Try buying a battery for like a lawn tractor.
Yeah.
You got 30 days.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
there's no, if it fails in the first 30 days, they'll replace it.
Right.
Right. But after day 31, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Get it. I get it. Yeah, I have a battery for my generator, and I think the battery's got to be about 5 years old, and it still holds a charge. It still starts the generator whenever because I'll go out there and just run the generator every 3, 4, 5 months. I'll just fire it up and annoy the neighbors, and it fires up with the battery, and I keep looking at it like with a side eye, like when are you gonna turn into a paperweight? And so far, I've been fairly lucky, and it has been a battery that I have gotten with the generator. It's been like I guess you could say a dealership battery, right? An original equipment battery. So yeah.
And, the other thing that you got to throw into the mix, the battery technology has changed. They have AGM batteries now, which,
Sure.
That's
are
correct.
not like the old lead acid ones.
No, much better, much more stable.
Yes.
Much more stable. All right. So what also is stable, John, is we have our guest on with us. So let me cut you short so we can get to business.
You can cut me off anytime.
You got it. Consider yourself cut. Talk to you soon, John. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Later. Bye.
All right. And with us in the virtual studio, we have Mr. Zack Miller. Zack, how are you?
Hi, Zach.
I'm good. Good to meet you guys.
Good to meet
it's
you.
Good to meet you too. We have a lot to talk about.
Excellent.
Thank you for coming on Motormouth Radio.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
What would you say? The alternative automotive talk show.
So, Zack, you are the group publisher for transportation and music at Motorbooks/Quarto, correct?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah,
That's
Motorbooks.
great. That when I read that, I think now we've been dealing with Motorbooks for a number of years now, and I kind of remembered something about music passing by in my wheelhouse in the past, but and you wrote a book about Fender guitars.
Yeah. We started publishing. We've done music books kind of here and there across our history, and we did a book with Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top a few years ago. And anyway, probably about 3 years ago, we had an opportunity to work with Fender to do their 75th anniversary book. And so from that, we sort of thought, well, maybe we could do music books too, because myself and Jordan and Dennis, the other two editors I work with, are, serious music fans as well. So we started doing music books in 22, and now it's probably about 40% of the books we publish.
Wow. I gotta get a hold of my buddy there over at Motorbooks. I find out all about the automotive stuff. I want to see the music stuff too.
Yeah. I get Steve to set you up.
But working with Billy Gibbons, you pretty much are doing them both, right? It's almost like an automotive music book.
That's exactly what the book was. It was like 1/3 ZZ Top, 1/3 Billy's guitars, and 1/3 his cars.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just to as an aside, a few years ago, I was able to purchase a drum set that was actually, very, very akin to the one I learned to play on back in the 70s. It's a vintage.
It was made out of rocks. It was made out of rocks and wood.
That's a vintage Ludwig set. And I was now looking for history. I want to learn about the history. And I did find a book. It was okay. It was all right. So people are always interested in that stuff. Just so you know, there's always, we love to research our hobbies now that we're getting older, I guess.
Right. And I think that's kind of our deal for Motorbooks, I guess, whether it's cars or motorcycles, racing or music, is it's just we're enthusiasts and our customers are enthusiasts, and we sort of always have that perspective in mind, I guess, when we're putting the books together.
Right, right. Yeah, that's the way to do it. So you get a pure, a pure interchange. So
It's
you would
funny.
just, yeah.
I just want to just drop in a second. Zach, when you do the music books, are they done pretty much in the same format as like the car books are
Yeah.
concerned?
Yeah, they're
It's
basically kind of oversized, lots of illustrations,
mhm.
coffee table kind of books.
So
There's
do you look
probably
at it like a shop manual, like how to take apart your Fender guitar or something?
No, they're not instructional. No, they're not instructional. I would say they're more historical, informational, celebratory
Mhm.
kind of books. So,
Awesome.
we've got one book series that's devoted to like milestone albums. So
Oh
we
wow,
did
great.
a 50th anniversary for Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, and we just did Queen's Night at the Opera. We did Who's Quadrophenia. So really kind of milestone important albums, and we'll do kind of a Motorbook style treatment of those.
I
Yeah,
love
it's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
You
And,
test drive the album. See how it reacts in corners.
That's right.
How it works in
no,
wet weather.
but that's the thing. We always talk about this, cars and guitars. We're car guys. I'm a music guy. I'm a vinyl guy. So all that stuff is right in my wheelhouse. I mean, I collect as many albums as I do tools. So it's to this, still. So it's, yeah, it really is. That's cool
Yeah,
stuff.
same
Yeah.
here. My roots were in radio first, so it was music first, and then this, and then
Right.
this.
So yeah, I
So
want to
yeah,
I want to big shout out to Steve Roth because Steve is the guy that I deal with at Motorbooks. And actually, when he sent out the email about Motorbooks anniversary, I said, "Hey, Steve, that's great. Congratulations. How about you come on the show and we talk about it?" He goes, "Oh no, not me, but I got two guys that you would want to talk to, and Zach, you're one of them." I said, and that happens a lot. People usually typically defer to somebody else in the firm. So that's
Sure.
so.
so how did
But
how'd you
go
get started?
ahead.
No, it's just gonna ask, how'd you get started in the business? What's
Wow,
your
that was a long
background?
time ago. Let's see. I guess I've been kind of a car and motorcycle fan, sort of kind of out of the womb. I think it was like a genetic flaw in my family, and
You're in with good company.
yeah. So I'd always had the interest, and then I was actually working as a technical writer for a company, and I went back to school to finish a journalism degree, and during that time Motorbooks was a local company at that time. They were all based up here in Minnesota. And they had an editorial opening, and I met with them, and the first time through, I didn't get a job offer, but they did offer if I wanted to write a book, and so I did that, and then down the road a piece, they had another editorial opening, and that time I got my foot in the door.
Nice. No,
Yeah,
that's good. That's always been a hobby of mine. I'm an amateur uh, writer. That's something I love to do because you can convey a lot of times you can convey thoughts through a written word a little better than you can through a spoken word. So
yeah, certainly differently. Yeah.
yeah, without a doubt. And the motorcycles too. We kind of have a cross path. I know you have a fond affection for Italian motorcycles.
That's true. Yeah, it is a weakness for me.
I've never had that, but I do have an Italian car, and that, believe me, that gives a lot of
Suffering and
fun to this show. Yeah, because
it's like what is it they say like the Negroni, which is supposed to reflect the Italianness of the sweetness and the bitterness of life reflected in a single cocktail.
yeah,
That's kind of like Italian car and motorcycle ownership, right?
absolutely,
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
there's
bit of a
sometimes we'll own cars that will make us suffer just to give us reasons to talk about it on the radio. So mhm.
Which Italian car do you have, Ray?
I have a Fiat Spider,
What gen which vintage is that?
79. Yeah, it's
Oh, that's great.
last
That's a pretty car.
last of the carbureted ones. I sat there one day years ago and I looked at it closely and I said, yeah, I took the big front bumper off because that was 100 pounds. So the car was, understeering like crazy. That really helped the handling. and it really has this Ferrari-esque front scoop nose on it, and a new grill. Beautiful. The front of the car, the headlights are rounded. Everything is rounded. The fenders, everything is rounded. Then you go past the doors, and everything gets square. The back of the car is square, so it's round in the front, square in the back, and I'm like, well, I know Pininfarina designed this, but what the hell were they thinking?
Designed by committee.
And then the more that I look at it, the more I say, you know what, that's brilliant. Instead of keeping it the same, they changed it up midstream very elegantly, and it works. It works.
Yeah, they're a beautiful little car. Did you leave the front bumper off?
Oh yeah.
Because they look great without a front bumper. Yeah,
the bumper.
It does. It's definitely smooth. What are you driving? Zach? What do you got sitting in the garage?
I'm primarily a motorcycle guy.
Oh.
I do have a non-functioning, which is really a kind of a theme of many of my hobbies. I have a non-functioning Crosley Hotshot of all things.
Oh, wow.
Ace.
That I
keep it in the living room.
Just about, yeah. It's actually sideways at the front of the garage to make more room.
Here you go, Zach. I'll share a picture with you.
But that was
that's right. Yeah, that's Ray's.
There it is. Yeah, great looking car. Yeah, I love those. But yeah, that was something I inherited from my father.
Okay.
So he was a Crosley guy.
Yeah, I don't think he set out to be a Crosley guy, but he ended up with a couple of them.
Wow, and it has no doors.
Yeah, just kind of cut down. It's probably about the most dangerous thing you could drive in modern traffic.
Yeah, it's about a step above a golf cart. If I'm
kind of. Yeah, right. and slightly faster.
Slightly, just slightly faster.
So,
right.
Now in my circles, the conversation, because it's all car guys and motorcycle guys, I just had this conversation this morning in the chiropractor's office. One of my friends is building a chopper, and he inherited a project from his brother. It was a lot of stuff that was bought in the 90s. The frame, the front end, it's not a reverse fork, but it's a very nice sculpted fork. And now he's having trouble putting stuff together and trying to find specs. A lot of these companies are out of business already. So
right.
Like he says, he has his front end. He doesn't know how to put fork oil in it. There's no caps on top. There's no plugs in the bottom. You can even reverse fill it. And he says, I don't know how to do it. And he says, and the company is out of business. So this is what's happening with a lot of people who, even in the car world, who are buying parts from certain companies. I mean, if you stay with the big guys, you're okay. And then the company goes away. And now you have to re-engineer or be able to backwards engineer what they did. It's a problem I never thought I thought I'd never see happen, but it's interesting.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that'd be a puzzle for sure. I don't know. I don't know how you'd approach that.
And that was just one thing.
Right.
There was a couple other things too, and he said, he needed, for the brake there was like a bracket and spacers. I said, well, you can make that stuff. If you get a lathe, you can make the spacers, and you can always fab a bracket. But I think
there's a interesting the Haggerty newsletter. They had an article this past week where they were sort of talking about sort of concerns within the hobby about the sort of I don't know, sort of dying off, retiring, moving along, craftspeople, that really understand, sort of the outmoded systems, if you will, of a lot of collector cars, and just, a concern about, will there be enough young people interested in the hobby? Will there be young people that, are interested enough to make it a career to step in and learn those various trades? And I can see where that's a concern, and that combined with companies that are disappearing and information that's disappearing, it all makes for a challenge. It makes an opportunity as well, I would argue, but it does make for a concern and a challenge.
I just
see a motor book happening now.
You can see
because
I want to
the Backyard Mechanics Guide to Outmoded Technology.
Well,
right.
There you go. Either that or this show, one or the other.
I just read that article, and my first thought was I'm going to reach out to McKeel and see if I can get him on it, because he's open to what people's thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Another great one is too. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the program at McPherson College in Kansas.
Absolutely,
Yeah. I mean, they would be just talking around that topic. It'd be fascinating to have like the director of that program or something on.
You wouldn't happen to know the guy, would you?
I don't, but I can find out.
I would appreciate a contact information.
Sure.
I can reach out to him, because McKeel said in the article that one of the things that you could do as someone in the hobby is just take a younger person for a drive in an old car. Now, I read that this morning, okay? And on the way to the chiropractor's office, what do I see? I see a 52 Chevy making the U-turn on the road I was on. Okay, he gets behind me. Now he's behind me at the light. I'm looking at a guy driving the car, maybe in his 50s, and he had a kid, a boy in the car that was maybe about, I don't know, 12 or 13. I'm like, wow, McKeel just like got this guy out of the sky. This is exactly what I'm seeing now on the road behind me. Now, I don't know if the kid, I mean, there's been plenty of stories where, and funny ones too, where the father asks the son, hey, would you open the window? And like, how? There's no button. Well, yeah, you gotta roll it down.
Right.
Sure.
So, and I mean, I've done it with my own kids with like dial phones and things like that. They say, so I don't know if that may be part of it, because what they did at McPherson is they said there was another article in Haggerty magazine. I guess it was out at McPherson, and the auto shop teacher, instead of having the kids work on a new car, he got, I think, a 52 or 53 Chevy, and they rewired it and did a lot of maintenance. And he said the reason is it's easier. He goes, and I know this stuff, how to work on it, so we can show them on that before they, advance to the stuff that really boggles the mind.
Right.
But
I mean, the principles are all the same, right? So
yeah. But we talk about this all the time. I just had this conversation with my wife. I said a lot of guys that I've heard of in shops, younger guys, they want to be the scanner guy. They want to do, they're the keyboard commandos. And and I know guys who have told their employees, all right, change the water pump on this car or change the alternator. First of all, they don't want to buy the tools. They don't, and the tools, that's a whole nother argument. It's a huge investment. So some of them don't have it. Some of them don't want to spend the money. But the ones that do don't want to get dirty. Like, I have to get dirty and do that? Yeah. And then they rethink, and then they go out and they do coding somewhere, they leave the automotive field because it's very expensive to get into as a tech. And, even if your place pays for training, which is, it's not, across the board that way, a lot of money to get in and stay in it just for the tools alone. So I don't know really what the answer is. I don't know, but
well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, well, or maybe we won't. I don't know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I wonder about that.
Yeah, I guess I think that I feel like well, particularly if you go to a bigger car show, I feel like you see a decent number of younger folks. And I know that, Haggerty often talks about certain types of cars, particularly, sort of Radwood era cars, and and the percentage increases that they see in assurance quotes for vehicles of certain eras that then tie back to people that may be more of a millennial or Gen X generation. So I think that the vehicular interest changes over time, just because that the generational interest changes, but I don't think it goes away. I think a hobby will probably be safe in the long term. It'll be different, but I think it'll be okay.
Something I've been talking about on this show for, I don't know, better part of 20 years, at least 15, is, and now I just read this again in the Haggerty magazine. They talked about it in one of the articles, where cars that are now coming of age from the 80s, late 80s and 90s, that can now be up for restoration, and are the electronics going to be available, modules, computer.
Right.
Switches, network, things like that, and a lot of times they're not. So now, okay, you're going to retrofit a different engine. I don't want to see every car built with a carburetor on it. You want to keep some of them kind of original, and that stuff just may not be available.
Let's see another Motorbook rebuilding modules for Lexuses and Infinities and things like that, because they're the ones I've seen. The ones that are going first, like those parts, the cars from like the early 2000s, like all of those high dollar Japanese cars, a lot of those components are drying up, and a lot of those cars have to be scrapped because of it. And it's a shame. But yeah, even cars back in the 80s and 90s that, like Ray says, some of those parts are suffering.
Tony DeFeo, Uncle Tony, just did a video last week. He was in a junkyard, and he said, look at this. I'm walking through the junkyard. Look at these late model cars. They're pristine. The paint isn't even chipped. And some of them had the engines ripped out. He says, back in my day, this car would never have been in a junkyard. You rebuild it, you put an engine in it or whatever. He goes, but now they probably couldn't get components to fix this car, so it got scrapped. And the rest of it is in great shape. And I'm afraid that he's right. But so I just want to mention something before we take our bottom of the hour break. There is a book that Motorbooks put out that I have in my collection that I forgot about it. It's phenomenal. This. Yeah.
I have to put my glasses on. What is it?
Hot Wheels?
Is that the 50th anniversary book?
It is. And you open it, it's actually the collector's.
You got a couple of cars in there?
That's right. Yeah. Yep. It's a replica of a Hot Wheels car carrying case.
Oh, that's hysterical.
It's the collect. I've never taken the book out.
Don't ruin it. Don't.
It's the collect case, right, with the Hot Wheels book inside.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, it's a really fun book. The author Chris Palmer did a great job with that. You know, just spoke to the designers and engineers at Mattel, and we partnered with Mattel to make the book. And and we started out just trying to figure out, what can we do to make this kind of cool and special. And we eventually, because you remember they also had the Hot Wheels carrying cases that were shaped like a tire.
Sure.
And that was like, it's going to be hard to shelve in the bookstore.
Yeah.
So we landed on the rectangular case, which was also their common motif. And it's a really fun package.
Yes, very good. So I encourage people to look into Motorbooks. The catalog, they'll send you a catalog. You can see that there's really something for everybody in there.
There's, you can look at, Quarto is the larger company that owns Motorbooks. They publish all kinds of books, and we're just one of many topic areas that they publish. But if you go to Quarto.com, you can find Motorbooks there. Or if you put in motorbooks.com, it'll find its way back to Quarto and back to the right place. But that's where you can see, all of the car and music racing books that we have, because we have a pretty extensive backlist. I mean, we have titles that have been in print literally since the 1990s. They just keep chugging along. So there's quite a number of titles there.
Right. All right. So Zach, what we're going to do is take our bottom of the hour break. It's going to be a quick one. I do have to make a mention. I have to shout out to people that if you're a proud member of the Nassau Community College alumni, I am, you can find out more information about the Nassau Community College Alumni Association by visiting ncc.edu/alumni. And I have to look outside the WHPC weather window, and I'm happy.
What do you see, Ray?
Oh, I'm happy to say that I see lots of sun. There was a little bit of high clouds, but nice. We're in the 70s. We're in the mid 70s today. It's a beautiful spring day. Tonight is going to be also a nice spring night, low in the 50s. And we have a couple of nice days ahead of us with no rain till the middle of the week. So as we always do, Zach, we have a little piece here that we like to...
Quite a little piece.
We try not to encourage Chris too much, but we do the honor group of the hour. And Chris, are you prepared today?
I am afraid so, Ray. I am prepared for the honor group of the hour. And also taking a look, it's a very clear day here in the Nutmeg State. I can see all the way to the WHPC weather window, and it looks sunny as well. And also, you can use your thumbs to get in contact with us as well. You can text us at 203-670-4127 like Joe the Undertaker did. He said, today's kids that ride an old car inevitably burn a finger figuring out the cigarette lighter. And he's right. I think I have a scar too somewhere from...
Yeah.
Is this thing on?
Yeah, exactly.
Look, it glows.
It glows. Let's touch it.
Must be the USB light. Oh.
But today, the Motormouth Radio Honor Group of the Hour, if you had to resort to the owner's manual to learn something new about your car, the owner's manual is for novices and lightweights. We car guys don't need any stinking owner's manual. It's amazing how we're talking about this now. Ray and I didn't plan this. But so if you're figuring out with daylight saving, you forgot how to reset the clock, or did you by chance feel a button behind the steering wheel and you have no clue what it does? Can't figure out how to handle the scissor jack fitting into the inner rim of the spare tire so the trunk floor can lie flat? Where's the child lock out to lock out the power windows on the rear doors? So if you had to go through the owner's manual to learn something new about your car or to jar your memory over something you forgot, then this week you are part of the Motormouth Radio on a Group of the Hour. Don't let your neighbors catch you watching it or reading it. So
excellent.
But definitely Motorbooks. You can, we want to see you reading that. Not the owner's manual.
All right, so stay in place, keep it where you got it. And you know what? I did forget to say. I forgot to say that our weather is sponsored by Does Bagels, with locations in Garden City Park, Freeport, and 7th Street in Garden City. I can't forget
to pay those bills.
Yes, absolutely. So, Zach, this will be a quick break. It's going to be less than 4 minutes. It's going to be a real shorty this time. And we'll be back with more Motormouth Radio with Ray Guarino, Chris Switzer, and Zack Miller from Motorbooks in just a flash of an eye. So keep it where you got it.
My name is Carl Anthony with Automoblog and AutoVision News, and you're listening to Ray and Chris on Motormouth Radio, WHPC 90.3 FM.
This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision, with 2 locations in Limerick and Oceanside, who remind you that New York state law says you always have the right to choose which shop will fix your car. CarStar Celebrity Chase Collision offers a full range of services: 24-hour towing between Montauk and Manhattan, shuttle service, and they can help you with a rental car arrangement if needed. All repairs include the CarStar lifetime nationwide warranty, ensuring that the experts at Celebrity Chase Collision are always on your side.
Y sí, hablamos español.
More information is available at 516-593-0920 or online at celebritychasecollision.com.
This is Dennis Pitzenberger from Sticker Shock, and if you're not listening to Motormouth Radio, boy, you are lost in the smoke of the burnout. Make sure and tune in each and every week, because these guys are exactly what you want to hear. Real car guys, real talk, every single weekend.
Hey, you, get over here. Every Sunday, 12 to 1, you are going to tune in to hear the Motormouths, my friends Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer. 90.3 FM, WHPC. You might learn something.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're back. That was a quickie. Motormouth Radio, Ray, Chris, and Zack Miller from Motorbooks. We're talking all sorts of cool tech stuff today and great reading material. So we left off with Hot Wheels, and Zach, I want to delve into. I was very happy to see that you're a motorcycle aficionado.
What Ray has many years ago used to, when we were just on the radio, he would bring in props, and I'd always tell him it's not a visual medium. It is now, and Ray is in his glory.
Well, so. I got a bunch of motorbooks. This I mean, all right. I know you wrote a book about Vincent's motorcycle.
Long ago, yep.
Something I'll never come across. I know that'll never be in my wheelhouse, but I have some motorbook books that are from the motorcycle world that I really liked, and I want to share them with people. This one, which is pretty cool, it's the 1%er Encyclopedia. So
what is that?
Well, in the 1% world, Chris, of motorcycle clubs, this is like a primer for the clubs, where they're from, they originated. It tells you a lot about the patch technology and things on the patches. That's kind of you'd think you'd see that like in a kitschy store in the village, but no.
Yeah, it's a fascinating book. I mean, motorcycle club and motorcycle club history is really interesting, and we published, a fair amount of that topic, particularly sort of I don't know, I guess what you might call sort of the earlier period, kind of from the post-war up into the 70s. And, we worked with Dave Nichols, for example. He was the longtime editor of Easy Rider, and he did some books for us. And I'm blanking on John Hayes, I think, on the on the book you held up.
Well,
but yeah, really interesting history and and kind of a, unique post-war phenomena, the whole motorcycle club scene.
This one's written by Kenneth Ball, who was a club member in California, about one of the most infamous motorcycle members in California, Terry the Tramp, which again, when I saw Motorbooks had that, I was like, wow, I thought I'd be finding this in some, dark...
Some underground periodical or something.
And then I like to read it all. I found this one. So,
that's a fascinating book. Yeah,
this is phenomenal. It was about the East Bay Dragons, which was
Soul on Bikes.
It was an Oakland, California club, and phenomenal. I mean, for the histrionics, for things. If you're a student of that stuff, I really urge you to look into Motorbooks catalog. There's something for everybody in there.
Zach, how long does it take to write a book like that? Like something that's so comprehensive and so detail oriented, details that you can't just find on the internet. How long does it take to put something compile something like that together?
Yeah. But boy, really, it really depends on the author and the subject and kind of the intent. I think, most of the books that we put together, I mean, we're typically working with authors that are, motoring journalists or they're serious enthusiasts, or so they have writing experience at some level. And if it's a typical, a lot of our histories are probably 50, 60,000 words. So, they'll typically take about a year to put that together.
Oh.
But there's some authors. Randy Leffingwell is one of our authors. He's a Porsche specialist and very deeply knowledgeable Porsche historian. And he's been working on a history of Porsche racing from 48 up through 2000. And he's literally been working on that book for 10 years.
Mm.
And it's just started to publish. It'll be a multi-volume thing. And I wish I could say we were publishing it. He's working with a different publisher. But he's just published the first volume, which covers just a subset of that time. So it could be a passion project like that where someone's working on it for multiple years, or it could be something more sharply and focused with a lower word count. Maybe it takes 6 months. But it's between the writing and our editorial work and then all the design and then printing and finally getting it at the warehouse, it's probably most typically about a 18-month process front to back.
Yeah.
Wow, yes. And just to see the books and the quality and the pictures and the images, just the way it's put together, it's not just the writing. There's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah, it's a serious team effort. I mean, we have a really great design team, and then we have copy editors and proofreaders that are third parties outside the company that we work with, and a host of authors and photographers, and it's really the process of pulling a book together it's a very broad creative effort to get it wrapped up.
Yeah. This is the thing in life. As people age, there's a fellow I watch on YouTube. He was a former club member in California, and he's written books about the club and lifestyle. And now he's doing a YouTube series. He gets a lot of flack and diss over it. And he says, listen, he goes, I'm not doing this for me. I was part of it, but I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it to put the history out there so future generations can now hear it, see it, or read it from somebody who was there. And he does admit our histories are tainted by our own experience. So another guy's history with the same scenario may differ than mine. Doesn't mean mine's right or wrong or his is right or wrong. And a lot of people get hung up on that. They're like, no, you weren't over there, you were over here. You got to take it for what it was. It's a personal history. So I'm glad people are doing that. People of our generation are realizing, you want to leave something behind for the people after us to kind of pick up on and learn from. So
right.
And with the car, it's the same thing. I mean, I've had instances where I've worked on a car and I had guys say to me, how do you know how to do that? And it's because I've been doing it since I'm a kid. That's how I know. You never learned it because it's not in your wheelhouse.
Right.
So
do you work on your own car, Zach? Do you work on your own bikes?
I work on my bikes, yeah. I like most people, I have a modern car and I'll do a few things to it, but I don't have tons of diagnostic equipment and things like that. So the bikes are, well, they're just, even if they're relatively modern, they're just simpler and easier to deal with. And the older bikes are, as we talked about with the cars, are just a lot more straightforward. And so I guess you can feel more confidence, tackling them.
See, I fell into a technology hole with a motorcycle. The motorcycle I currently have, it's a BMW motorcycle, and it's computer controlled, but there's no scanner interface available for regular people to use to diagnose the thing. And now it's getting a little older, so the dealers don't want to look at it either because it's older. And it's almost like that 80s or 90s. It's exactly in that range, that 80s or 90s car now that may have electronic issues. What do you do about it?
I see another motorbook.
Which BMW is that, Ray?
Well, I buck tradition. I'm a K-bike guy. I have a K1100 LT. So it was the Sport Tourer. I was riding a Harley for years and riding with a bunch of guys. We did a lot of hard, fast riding, and I was keeping up, but I was coming home and I was beat and broken and I was just going to sleep. And a buddy of mine was into the BMWs. I would ride his bike, and boy, it just felt so foreign from anything the switchgear. That's the thing with BMWs. But the more I rode it, it took me back to like when I rode 4-cylinder Hondas and said, wow, this thing is smooth as hell. It's nice. He had a K75. And I ended up stepping up and buying that K1100. And boy, I never looked back. It's like riding a vacuum cleaner on wheels. It's got power windows. It's got heated grips. It's got
air conditioning.
Well, pretty much, yeah. It's got, like I said, power windows. You could ride in the rain and not get wet, literally. Great bike. But now...
Well, and I like with the BMWs is so many of their bikes they take an unconventional approach, right? With that, with the K series with the 4-cylinder or 3-cylinder laid on its side in line with the frame. So, no one else was doing that. I don't think anyone. Well, I guess Sunbeam did that right back in the 50s with their twins. They were in line, but very unusual configuration.
Right. I mean, the boxes obviously were opposed this way. But
right.
Take a 4-cylinder. All the the UAJ bikes were 4 cylinders straight up. They flopped it down and turned it 90 and said, "Man, the pistons go this way. The crank is over there. It's a nice flat profile." Of course, to get to anything above it is a problem because of the you got to take the tank off and they're not. It's not like working on a Harley.
Right.
But yeah, very interesting approach. And when I got into it, I had no predisposed thoughts about it. And a lot of the guys, of course, all came up with the Boxer engine. And when the K-Bike came out, they said, blasphemy, this thing is multi-cylinders, it's 3 or 4 cylinders, and they water cooled it. Oh my God, it's not a real BMW. And they would shun it. They wouldn't ride them. And man, and I came in with that. So I said, man, this bike is great. The Boxer is kind of like the Harley. I get that. It's a thump, 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 and I get that. But I like the smoothness. And literally, the throttle is like having a rheostat in your hand. It's not like a throttle. It just literally, the torque curve is just flat and straight. It's unbelievable. Almost kind of boring on the highway.
Well, and now look at BMW today, right? I mean, they've got, inline cross-frame 4-cylinder superbike. They still make the flat twin. They've got parallel twin.
Correct.
6-cylinder. They got the big cross-frame 6-cylinder. So, they really, if you think back to where BMW was in the early 70s, from a technological and engine configuration perspective, they've been crazy successful in just blowing up their model lineup.
The R100 was like the R100S, or the R90S was like the king dog. I tell you, the R27 is something that someday, if I ever had $1 million, I'd love to buy. That's just a beautiful. You talk about sculpture in metal. What a beautiful machine. But yeah, expensive stuff.
I just love the fact they don't have a chain.
Well, no, shaft drive. They did
shaft drive
bike in the 90s. The 650 was the first chain drive bike that they came out with, like, ever. And it was kind of like an on-off road thing. But yeah, the shaft. So, and then said, oh, you're going to get shaft jacking. No, you don't. You know what? You don't even know it's on there. It's like, I had a Datsun 610 that the first car I had that had an independent rear. And that had that independent rear squat to it, where if you took off hard, the back would squat. So that's what people were saying about the BMWs. And I realized they haven't ridden one because you don't feel it. It's not there. They just, these are just the haters. So, yeah. So that,
no, it's a truth about the smoothness. I mean, even in their cars, the only BMW vehicle I ever owned was an 85 series, and I marveled at how smooth it was, even with the 5-speed. It's just like Ray said, the bike and the car to me are pretty much, you can describe them exactly the same.
And I swear the K-Bike has parts from the car line on it. I'm sure those gauges are right out of the dash of a car. And the alternator, the thing is an 800-watt alternator on it, which literally, if you took the drive off for the for the belt and put a regular drive system on it, I'm sure you could bolt that onto a car.
Probably.
So, and I think that's brilliant because now they were able to borrow from the car line into the motorcycle line. I mean, who else gets to do that? You know,
no, it's very, very, very true. Zach, what's on the horizon for Motorbooks? What do you got planned? What's going on? What's in your pocket that you're ready to show off to the world?
Well, let's see. What have we got coming up this fall? I always, when people ask me that, I always kind of blank out on what we're working on. But we have speaking of BMW, we have a series you guys have probably seen.
Yeah, I'm looking at your shelf. I hope more people watch this when we put it on YouTube.
So we have this whole complete book series. This one happens to be Triumph motorcycles, but we have a new edition of our complete book of BMW motorcycles coming out this fall. Really? We're also doing a 50-year history of BMW 3 Series because they have their 50th anniversary next year. Right. And what else do we have coming? We have we just published Porsche 911 complete book, kind of like that Triumph book. We have on the music side, we have a history of the alternative and grunge rock movement. It's a narrative book that's coming out this fall.
That is cool.
Yeah. And then we have what else is coming up? We're doing I mentioned that milestone album series, so we're doing one for Rush 2112. Oh, great. That's coming up pretty soon.
Does the grunge book come with a flannel cover?
Yeah, it's got a couple strategic tears in it. Yeah.
Holes in the knees.
That's right. That I'm such a stick in the mud with music. I'm so rooted in what I like that fans, whole terms of music passed me by because I don't pay attention to it, and grunge was one of them. It kind of ticked on my radar, but if I would have listened a little closer, I would have seen that I really liked it because it kind of rooted back in the original rock that I started listening to, that that 3 or 4 piece garage band stuff that was just a couple chords, a couple power chords, and a good drum and bass beat.
Yeah. So, it's definitely an evolution from the punk movement that preceded it. Yeah.
Of course, a lot of it did still spill into the punk thing, where a lot of bands, they'd start out a song nicely and then just take it to that punk side. So they still had that. I guess it was maybe regionally where you were from, what your roots were. But
Zach, how do you feel about the age of music nowadays? Because we're all around, I would say, around the same age. How do you feel to think about like grunge was 30 years ago? Like, how does that impact you? Like, what do you think? What's your thoughts on something like that?
Oh, you mean, do I get the despondent with the speeding passage of time?
Yeah, right, exactly. Because it boggles my mind personally. I sit there.
Yeah.
I was a music guy in 1995, and I'm thinking to myself, holy smokes, it was 30 years ago. Now it's what? How do you feel?
Yeah, well, I'm well prepared for it because I can contextualize it to the pace at which my restoration projects occur.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you guys, but I go out to the garage and I'm like, oh God, boy, I remember I took that motorcycle off the road about 3 years ago because I was having some problem, and then I look at the license plate and it was 15 years ago. So, when someone says, "Oh, grunge, that was 90 years ago," I'm like, "Really? It wasn't 7 years ago?"
Right.
So, I think it's just it's a healthy sense of denial, which really helps me get through these things.
Yeah.
Good. You and I both.
Now we're in the same boat with that. Yeah. Well,
we're all in the same boat.
That's why I don't give up. I have my vinyl. I still listen to CDs. I mean, I listen to older music all the time. And I've
got a wire recorder too. He listens to Nelson Riddle. And
I've turned a lot of younger people onto that older music. Guys who maybe liked something a little more, upbeat or anarchistic, and say, hey, listen, I drop an Ozzy CD on, or listen to some Black Sabbath. I'll give you something that'll curl your hair. This is 1970. Hey, this was high school, guys. Listen to this. And they're like, wow, where'd that come from? Like, yeah, it's there. You just
I think it's I guess cars, motorcycles, music, a lot of those things. It's kind of it's really, to me, it feels like kind of an overlapping continuum, right? Yeah. Because there's this like a constant feedback loop between what's happening now and what's come before it. And, what you have, like I said, like you said, over the last, I don't know, probably 5 years, there's been this interesting resurgence in vinyl.
Mhm.
And, and there's a real strong interest right now in, I mean, you used to be able to buy vintage audio equipment so cheap on eBay,
Yeah,
but
not
not
anymore.
anymore. Those days are gone.
Sure.
And, and I think, people that, and I think really that's why I try not to be over concerned about the continuation of hobbies because I think younger people, younger than us, eventually they come across this stuff and they're intrigued by it, and it's just part of that overlapping cycle. And and they come to it, they learn about it, maybe they bring their own spin to it, they approach it differently. Maybe they get really interested and they start collecting it, doing repair work on it themselves. So I think that, you know, I do think that eventually there are some technologies that they just go away completely because they're so archaic that there's no context for them to really exist anymore. And
Yeah.
but it has to be a pretty long time before that happens. I mean, people still, I mean, we not Motorbooks, but Quarto. I mean, we've published books within the last couple of years about blacksmithing,
Yeah, yeah.
because there's
Oh,
this interest in
wow.
people about to forge, to do
Forging
forging
fire,
things,
yeah.
whether it's making blades or whatever the case may be.
I need to shoe
So
my horse.
No, forging
yeah, well,
fire.
or I want to make a samurai sword, whatever the case may
You know,
be.
I'll tell you a quick story. My older daughter and her husband, well, before they were married, they got a little record player and they were listening. I said, "Good, you listen to vinyl." I gave them some records, some of my stuff that I didn't want to play, and now their interest has been increasing, and now I realize, like, I told them, I said, I'll invest. I'll buy you the turntable, and I'll buy you a turntable with a preamp in it with some powered speakers. That's all you need. You don't need a full system, and it'll sound pretty damn good. But I realized I've always been that hands-on mechanical guy, and I set up my cartridges, and I look at the azimuth angle, and I look at the tracking force and all of that. And I said, boy, there's a lot to know about this that I take for granted because I grew up with it. And, but a lot of my friends had crappy record collections. Why? Because they didn't pay attention to any of that stuff. So I feel
I did crappy
indebted
record
to kind of
collection.
teach them, and I'm almost afraid that's going to be the thing that's going to set them off and say, "Oh no, that's too much."
Yeah, I don't know because I think that I think in the modern era, where everything is where so much is virtual and so much is electronic and so much is a passive participation thing. I think that at a certain point, people develop an interest in wanting to have a more hands-on experience, no matter what that may take. And I think that, with vinyl, which is a great example, there's just all of the details you talked about. You can burrow into all that if you want to, but even if you don't, just the ritual of, taking the album out of the sleeve, putting it on the turntable, cueing the album, in the city, it's much more immersive,
Mm-hmm.
and it demands a certain type of attention that you pay that in many facets of your life you don't have. And I think that people are interested in old cars and old motorcycles and blacksmithing for all of those same reasons. They might spend most of their day in the electronic and virtual world, but there's at some point they want to have their hands on something and they want to do something.
But just like adjusting valves, not everybody should try to adjust their cartridge. So, on that note, Zach, we are just about at the end of our show. So, if you can tell people if you have contact information, if people would reach out or find you or find your work, please put it out to us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, thanks for having me on.
Mm-hmm.
Keep talking to Steve. You guys are a great supporter for Motorbooks, and we really appreciate that. It's our 60th anniversary, so we're hoping people notice us and pay a little attention to us this year. And yeah, otherwise, like I said, if you go to Quarto.com, you'll find Motorbooks and all the other imprints that Quarto has, which publishing all kinds of topics. And then even if you try Motorbooks.com, you'll eventually backdoor your way in there. So, if it has wings, wheels, or floats, we dig it, and music as well. And yeah, I hope you check us out.
And now that you've been on the show, Steve, you're a friend. You want to come back on anytime, reach out to me. You have contact information. You got a project, something you want to talk about, just come shoot the breeze. We're here.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Thanks, guys.
Thank
I
you,
really
Zach.
appreciate it.
Chris, what do I say to the guys waiting for me out in the parking lot?
Don't follow us home and put a motor book on your coffee table.
You got it. All right, for Chris Switzer, Ray Guarino, Zack Miller from Motorbooks. Thank you, Steve Roth, also, and all the fine folks over at Motorbooks. Motormouth Radio over and out. We'll be back next week on 90.3 WHPC.
See you, bud.
Yeah.